I could speak to you, to the listeners, to say, yeah, Josh is a deal maker, is a connector. That platinum Rolodex is true. And what's funny about that is that most people under 30 probably don't even know what a Rolodex is.
Yes.
Let's just do an aside here. How did the company Rolodex screw that up? I mean, that is the word for contact list. That's what we, in our generation and above and beyond us, we know that. But somehow when the digital economy came, they decided, nah, we're not going to play. Can you imagine an app called the Rolodex app, or social media? Like LinkedIn could have been called Rolodex. I mean, and it wasn't. I don't understand how they missed that. What do you think about that?
Well, you look at Blockbuster, right? This movie was a Blockbuster event. Well, Blockbuster didn't evolve, right? They just kept on. No, people will always want to rent VHS tapes and rewind it before they bring it back, right?
In today's ultra-competitive business world, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner can be very challenging. Fortunately, contemporary times have blessed us with resources for tackling those challenges and getting us to success more quickly than we could have imagined. Welcome to The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan, a podcast that explores how the world's most powerful entrepreneurs grow incredible companies. This podcast looks at the 5 keys to unlocking success as an entrepreneur. A successful educator turned entrepreneur, Jason's mission is to use his gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. Join Jason every week and learn the keys to grow a truly successful business.
Welcome back to another episode of The Root of All Success. I'm the real Jason Duncan, coming to you live. Well, you're probably not listening to this live, but I'm live right now in Destin, Florida. I'm down here for a trip. I'm visiting some friends and a network that I belong to. A couple hundred of us are getting together down here. Plus, we're doing a nonprofit gala this weekend. I'm looking at some short-term rental properties to purchase. So I'm down here in Florida. I'm actually recording this from my hotel here in Florida, in Destin, Florida, Miramar Beach, actually. And so I know the background looks a little different, but thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can definitely tell I'm in a different location. If you're listening to it, I would have never had to say anything. You wouldn't know anything different. But if you are listening to it, you're listening to it because we are syndicated on the C-Suite Radio Network, and they syndicate us on every podcast player imaginable. So I want to say a big shout out to those guys for letting me do that. And also to my marketing team at 2 Market Media. Look those guys up. It's the number 2marketmedia.com. They help me by producing the podcast and getting it ready to push out to all the podcast players. They also help edit all the videos and the audio versions of this. So you can watch this on YouTube at youtube.com/The Real Jason Duncan. Go check that out. All right, I've got a really cool guest for you today, a guy that we met. I met Josh through, we're going to talk about how we met on the show, but I think we met through LinkedIn, connecting on podcasts. But Josh Wilson is the creator of a group of syndicated internet shows with topics that are focused on business, investments, and even some taboo subjects around surrounding men's health. He has a really weird and professional eclectic background, shall we say, from everything from wrestling alligators. Seriously, we're going to talk about that. Fighting fires, delivering babies, scaling construction companies, working in venture capital and private equity, and building and selling media brands and podcast shows. And Josh has taken the road less traveled, but he's built a platinum Rolodex along the way. And that's going to be a big theme of today's show. We're going to talk about what that Rolodex is, what it means. We're even going to take this little journey down the side road of the company Rolodex. And so if you don't know what a Rolodex is, we're going to talk about that today. But he's a podcast host. He's a social media influencer. And he's the CEO of Kingdom Syndicate, which is a company that focuses on syndicating private investment deals and putting people and deals together. I want to welcome my friend, Josh Wilson, to the show. Well, Josh, man, thank you for being on the show today. This is going to be such a good conversation. I already know it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jason, I get so nervous. I've had a lot of podcast shows. I've done 1,000 interviews, but when someone interviews me, I get nervous. So I just want to start out by saying, I love you, and I'm a little nervous.
Well, listen, we're hundreds of miles apart right now, even though we're in the same state. So it's all good. I'm not going to bite you. Nothing's going to happen.
Good.
We're going to have a good time. I get invited to be on other people's shows. I was on a couple of other shows this week, and it's for me, it's not, well, I don't get nervous doing a show, but man, when I get invited to be on somebody's show, I am loose and I love it. So you and I are a little different there. I got on this dude's show the other day. It was his first ever show as his first guest. And I was honored to be his first guest. And man, when he started off, it was a little rough at first. And then at the end, it was a little rough because he's trying to figure out how to do intro and outro. But man, his conversation in the middle was just fantastic. And I told him at the end, I said, dude, when you figure out how to get that intro and outro done, you're going to kill it. You're really good at just easy to talk to. So, and I know that's what you are, because I've been on your show, and we're going to have a good time today. So in the intro, I talk about how you do all kinds of crazy stuff, but I got to ask, I mean, is the wrestling alligators just something that because you live in Florida and it just happens? But what's that all about?
Listen, I grew up working on a construction site with my dad, and love my dad. He's passed away now, but he was the best man at my wedding. We are very similar. But growing up working with my dad, I just wanted another job, right? Like I was sick of working with dad for a little bit. So I opened up back in the day when you had newspapers, and it said entertainers wanted. And that's how I got into wrestling alligators professionally.
So you actually got paid to wrestle alligators?
Oh yeah. What do you think? All right. So I started, day one, I got hired day one, Nine Finger Jesse started teaching me. He was my trainer, and he put me in an alligator pit and showed me how to catch, 2, 3, 4 foot alligators. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I worked up to wrestling 9.5, 10-foot alligators over the time. Now, this was probably 2002. Take a guess at what a alligator wrestler gets paid per hour. It was an hourly gig. How much do you think I made per hour?
In 2002, I'm going to guess somewhere around $5 or $6, just because I think it's probably ridiculous rather than the other direction. That's
minimum wage. Yeah, $6 an hour. The same thing the guy selling, pop out in the concession stand. I was getting paid the same amount to wrestle 9-foot gators. Isn't that crazy?
So not a big future in alligator wrestling, evidently.
Yeah, no, I still have all my fingers, so I am, perfect score there. My right ankle clicks when I walk from an attack that got me. But other than that, man, I came out a little unscathed. Probably not all there mentally, but I made it.
So I think we're all familiar with the fact that there are alligators in the state of Florida. What I don't think people understand is that there are a lot of bears down here too. And I just saw a TikTok video yesterday of a bear attack at a guy's house in Florida. I don't know the details. It was just a quick 15-second video, but he was out on his screened in back porch with his dogs, and it's like 2 little dogs, and they started just bark, going nuts, and ran towards the door. And this black bear just jumps over the the gate to keep the dogs in, and comes in, and the man just hops down and bear hugs the bear and pushes him back out and grabs it's insane. Yeah. I'm like, where is this happening? So you guys have panthers, you've got bears, you got alligators. It's a very diverse state. So you got to experience it firsthand, but you've done a little bit of all that kind of stuff. Alligators, firefighting, delivering babies, all that kind of stuff. I guess, were you working as an EMS or something like that when you were doing that stuff?
Yeah. So construction, took a brief stint in professional alligator wrestling, got back into construction. And then my thought was my dad could build the stuff, I could sell it. So I got my real estate agent license and then broker license. And then I got into speculation and built a bunch of stuff. But when the market crashed, I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do as a broker on speculation? I lost all my money and I had to figure it out. So I got a government job. I wanted a secure job, and I thought that security would be a good fit for me. And I became a firefighter paramedic, and I worked in EMS. I drove an ambulance, and then I drove a rescue truck, and then I delivered babies, fought fires, and I did that for a little bit. Went to plane crashes and all sorts of interesting things. And it wasn't for me, man. I wasn't really built to be a government worker or an employee. I'm a crappy employee.
Well, how did you get your start into entrepreneurialism now? Because I mean, you're killing it with your company, Kingdom Syndicate. You've got a platinum Rolodex, like I talked about in the opening, and you've introduced me to some great people. I've had some of your introductions on my show. Some of your introductions have turned into clients of mine. So
Yes.
how did you how did you get into what was your first foray into entrepreneurship?
So I mean, do you want me to go back to like when I was a kid? What kind of stuff was I doing?
Like what was that first thing you did?
All right. So, mom's side of the family, I have a Jewish grandmother. So like growing up, this was a part of our Saturdays. Jewish grandmother, my mom and I, we would go to yard sales, garage sales, and we would buy stuff. So that's where I learned how to like buy things. And I'd buy things and then I would sell it. So we would go to garage sales, or we would, in Fort Lauderdale, we would go to a place called the Swap Shop. So I'd go to the swap shop and I'd buy Oakleys and knives and stuff like that. And then I'd sell it to other kids, right? Statute of limitations is passed, right? So like I can't get in trouble for saying this stuff now, but I'd buy fake Oakleys and I'd buy this stuff and I'd buy gum from like Winn-Dixie in the big, value pack. And then I would sling gum in school, 25 cents a piece. And then, competition came. So I had to go 2 for 25. And, I was the dealer, right? So I would sell crap from the construction site. My dad would throw away a piece of plywood. I'd put a nail in it and then it, make a skateboard ramp, build a little skateboard ramp and sell that. So I was always trying to make money, buying and selling baseball cards, slinging stuff, man. Like it was fun for me. So that's kind of how I got started. It was just, I wanted money and my parents didn't have any money. So if I wanted to do something, I had to make it my own.
Well, so that's as a kid and teenage, was that young teenage years as a kid and stuff like that? But
yeah, like 10 probably.
so preteen, so you're barely into double digits in your age, and you're making entrepreneurial, innovative risks. But that didn't stick permanently because you went the route of fighter, paramedic, alligator wrestler, and then came back full circle to entrepreneurship. So when did you start your first legitimate like LLC corporation? When did that happen and what was it?
Yeah. So construction, right? My dad was in construction. I was getting paid, I think he was paying me like $8 an hour. And I'm digging footers and, on top of roofs and such like that. In Florida in the summer, I'm sweating my balls off, right? Like it is hot. And then I'd see these people drive up in Lexuses, put a sign in the front yard, and then drive off. And I'm like, who are they? Real estate agents. So I was at 18 years old, I got my real estate license. Once I got my license and I started like learning that, I got a job later on after doing a few deals with my dad. I got a job at like Caldwell Banker or something like that, one of the local real estate companies. And I think maybe 20 years old is when I formed my first LLC, which I did it wrong and I started it out as this and anyways, 20 probably.
So 20 years old, you got into the real estate game.
Yeah.
You're not in your 20s anymore. So you've been doing a lot of stuff, but is it mostly focused on real estate? Has that been your kind of your niche, your specialty?
Yeah, Jason, I think my whole life is trying to figure out what the heck I do. But if you ask my wife, like, what does Josh do? She goes, I don't know, but he's making money and we're good. So I would say, yes, we have a brokerage and we focus on putting deals together, commercial real estate and business acquisitions. So we leverage on that side of the business, we could do deals. On the side that brings us deals is we have podcast shows and we have multimedia and we have social influence. So we have business brokerage, real estate brokerage, and then on this side we have a public relations company that helps bring the kind of deals that we want. So what do I do? I'm a deal maker. I put people in deals together at a whole.
Well, that's been my experience with you, because I don't remember specifically how we originally met. I think maybe we just connected through LinkedIn on the podcast concept. I think is that right? Is that how we met originally?
Yep.
And then I think you reached out to me, and then we ended up getting together, had a couple of phone calls, Zoom calls. Then I was on your show and said, well, you need to be on my show. So we've kind of swapped that. So I could speak to the listeners to say, yeah, Josh is a deal maker, is a connector. That platinum Rolodex is true. And what's funny about that is that most people under 30 probably don't even know what a Rolodex is.
Yes.
Let's just do an aside here. How did the company Rolodex screw that up? I mean, that is the word for contact list. That's what we, in our generation and above and beyond us, we know that. But somehow when the digital economy came, they decided, nah, we're not going to play. Like, can you imagine an app called the Rolodex app, or social media? Like LinkedIn could have been called Rolodex. I mean, and it wasn't. I don't understand how they missed that. What do you think about that?
Well, you look at Blockbuster, right? This movie was a Blockbuster event. Well, Blockbuster didn't evolve, right? They just kept on. No, people will always want to rent VHS tapes and rewind it before they bring it back, right? And then I think Redbox, or Netflix even was trying to get Blockbuster to participate, and they're like, no. Netflix started doing it. Blockbuster even tried to follow suit and created their own little kiosk, and they failed miserably. So I think consistent trying things, right? I think that's what Rolodex missed. Remember that the original CRM Act? Remember that back in the day?
I don't. No, I don't.
So I think it was called Act. So I know the guy who created it. So they created it and they had a sell-off event. But now look at CRMs. There's like tons of different CRMs. There's Pipedrive, there's Salesforce, there's 100 different things. So I think if someone doesn't consistently stay on the edge and try and fail on different things, they're going to get left behind, like Rolodex. Like, remember that? You'd have to spin it to see the certain contact. And I would take my dad's and spin it, and cards would fly everywhere.
if you are listening right now and you don't know what we're talking about, Rolodex, you might have heard the word. You got to go home, get on the internet, type it into the search browser, and look for what a Rolodex is. There were different versions of it. I remember my grandmother had a version of Rolodex it was a metal case. Now, hear me out. This is interesting. So it was a metal case, about half the size of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. It had a metal lid. It had tabs with all of the letters of the alphabet on the side. And so when you hit the tab, like D for Duncan, for like my last name, if you hit D, the top case would open up to the list of all the people that she had written on a piece of paper that had D as last name. There's that version. Wow. I thought that was the coolest thing. There's the spinny ones like you're talking about that that's why they got the name Rolodex, because it would have this deck, these cards in there in alphabetical order by last name. You would write on this card physically people's contact information, and it had this unique system where you could just slip it in and it would stay like connected, and you could roll it. And then they had the kind that was like just a card deck where it was, just they weren't connected. It was just loose pieces of paper. Such a cool concept back in the Yellow Pages days, back in the phone book days. We don't have it anymore. So anyway, sorry, that's my little
He brought us back on this this background. It's so great to go backwards sometimes and just like reminisce, going, wow, we've come a little far. Now we have a cell phone that was more powerful than the computer that they supposedly went to the moon with. So like, technology's flying, right?
Well, you remember back when cell phones first came out, you could store 99 numbers. That was it. Like that was the number one, because you could hit and hold number one, call your wife, hit and hold number two, call your mom or dad or whatever. And now I can put 10 million contacts in my phone. It doesn't matter. Is Rolodex even a company? Rolodex even a company now? I mean, what?
I don't know.
No, we don't have to get them to sponsor my show now. I just talked about them. So
this episode is sponsored by Rolodex. If you want more than 99 contacts, use our new system. Push up. Yeah, so maybe.
Well, let's talk about your Kingdom Syndicate. So tell me about how and why you started it. Let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about what it does. Because I'm curious. You and I have very similar spiritual and worldviews about how things are working, and I want to get into that.
Yeah.
And we'll see where that goes. But how and why did you start Kingdom Syndicate to begin with, and when?
Yeah. So I have failed a lot, and we could get into my failure story. So it's funny coming on a show called The Success, and I'll be like, oh man, I've had a lot more failure than success. But I started this business, the Kingdom Syndicate, because I always felt like my purpose in life was to build kings and kingdoms, right? Like, what the hell does that mean, right? And I'm sorry to cuss on your show. Hell's
not a cuss word, man.
Okay, cool.
There are no good words, no bad words, only words used inappropriately, and I think that was appropriate.
Perfect. All right. So I kind of felt like my mission was to be the guy who puts deals together. I'm good at putting deals together. I'm really good at, this is just the favor that I have. I'm really good at seeing your skill set, your talents, and then going, oh, you should connect with so and so. So a syndicate is essentially people coming together to work on a common mission for a project. Kingdoms, in my mind, was like, hey, all these real estate people are trying to build kingdoms. So I was like, why not build kingdoms together with other people? So I built it, a while ago, and I never wanted to be a company that you see a sign in the front yard, like grandma's house is listed by Kingdom Syndicate. So I learned early on I didn't like working for grandmas. I worked really well with business owners and investors. Those are my people. So we as failing enough, I learned those are my people. So now we only focus on working with those kind of people. And we mostly focus on the side of the acquisition side. So someone's like, hey, I got a lot of money. I want to go buy something or invest in something. They call us up.
So do you do that? Like, do you have your own fund that you're helping people invest, or are you just the connector that brings those people together?
So that's going to be in the future. So maybe, version 3.0 kind of in the future, we'll have our own fund, our own private equity stuff going on inside. But right now we do it for other funds, other operators, other investment groups, other syndicators. So we're using other people's money right now.
So if I said, hey, I'm looking at purchasing a company, they sell televisions. I'll just use something crazy, but so they sell television. I want to buy this company.
Yeah.
Are you the type of company that I would come to say, hey, Josh, I'm looking at buying this company, and I've got a couple of partners that we want to come in. We're looking for funding and help kind of putting the deal together. Is that something that you would help syndicate, kind of bring those people together to make that deal work? Is that what you do?
Now we can, yes, we can knock on doors and we could find, television companies that are now, flat screen TVs. We can go buy a company that does flat screen TVs, right? So yes, but in my Rolodex, in my syndicate, in my network, I have business brokers. So I'll tap my brokerage. I'll go, hey guys, I'm looking to buy this kind of company. This is the metrics. This is what we're looking at doing. Does anybody have anything? Because I have a brokerage, we could put that deal together and I could get paid a commission from them. So I could accelerate it that way. And then I could also go off market deals and start knocking on doors and such like that. So yes.
So I could come to you before I even identified it's like if I wanted to buy LG, for example, before I even identify that I want to pursue that opportunity, I can come to you and say, hey man, I want to get into the TV space. Help me figure that out. That's kind of what you do. You help figure out, okay, I can go look for this and put all the deal together. That's what Kingdom Syndicate's doing.
Yeah. And if you look at me, I'm 40 years old. So I have a breadth of experience from wrestling alligators, venture capital, private equity, blah, blah, blah. Right. So if it's something that I'm not familiar with, I'm going to go, let me do this. Let me bring in a partner. We'll work on it together. It won't cost you any more. Let me bring in a partner and I'll bring in an expert for that thing and we'll work on the deal together. It's all about working with other people. So I'll bring in a partner, like one of our partners is like Transworld. So I'll bring in the CEO, Andy, and I'll go, hey, Andy, I want you to meet Jason. Let's work on this deal together. And he'll leverage my expertise in podcasting and networking and in mass media. And then he will tactically work the deal for us. So we'll work on the deal together, split the commissions, and then you get, two people working for you.
Nice.
Faster.
Nice.
Yeah.
So why did you name it Kingdom Syndicate? I mean, I think I know why you named it, but let's be clear.
I as a Christian, my purpose on this earth, I think, is to focus on building God's kingdom, right? Like, this is all not mine anyways, right? This microphone is not mine. I believe that everything is God's. He owns everything and I'm a steward. But being a son of God, I'm a king, right? So like my job is to help manage his kingdom and I get to be a part of it. I'm his boy. So I get to put deals together for God's glory, but to have fun doing. I'm made to put deals together. Like this is what I'm created to do. So kingdom was this, putting kingdoms together. That's
all right. I dig it, and that's what I knew, but I wanted to make sure, or at least what I thought I knew. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the Rolodex thing because I think there's not the story of the company, but the concept. When did you? And we're going to talk about this in a minute about how people are so important to your success. But when did you? Do you have a memory of when you realized the idea of having those connections was going to be a key to your success? Was there a moment in time where you met a person or you decided to write that person's name down and keep it and then introduce, because you're really good at it? I've experienced you. We haven't known each other that long, but in my experience, you're really good. It's not just part of what I'm saying in your introduction. You're really good at that. When do you remember that being a thing you thought, ooh, I need to do this. This is important.
So, man, anywhere I go, so this is just a little bit how I'm wired. I built some skill sets around it. I've read a bunch of books on it, but I knew early on like, for example, I moved to Ocala, a little place called Ocala, Central Florida. We moved from Fort Lauderdale to Ocala in 1996. I moved to Ocala, which is known for farming, horses, country boys, rednecks, right? I came here wearing flip-flops, board shorts, and a silk shirt, getting my toes stepped on by cowboys wearing boots. So within 4 years, and this is, I'm not bragging or anything, because there's nothing to brag about, because I don't want to be the guy who goes, oh, look what I did in high school. But I had friends in every single social group, and by end year 4, I was voted, and this is so dumb, the most popular kid in school, right? Mr. Forest High School. So dumb. But what people started to say is, Josh, if you can learn how to make money by getting to know people and building relationships with them, then you're going to be successful. So after that, people would ask me, they'd be like, hey, Josh, do you know someone who does X? And in my head, it's a Rolodex, and I'm going, oh yeah, you should talk with Jason. You want to exit your business without exiting, and you want to learn about how to become a passive investor in businesses? Like, yeah, you should talk with Jason. He's the expert on it. I'm limited. So and people started going, hey, do you know someone who, hey, I need money for I'm looking to, and people would just come to me. And after a while I go, wow, I'm just connecting everybody, and I'm giving of my network, and I'm not making any money, and I'm going broke. So there's vehicles you could do to put in place to get paid for relationships, networks, connections, referrals, those kind of things. So I think that's when I started realizing, hey, maybe there's something here.
Well, I think I'm making a note because I'm going to ask you about something about that later, but
okay.
I think it's interesting that you recognize that as a result of your high school experience. I don't think that people understand that what prepares you for success later in life, especially as an entrepreneur, sometimes is in the most unlikely places. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes when I start talking about my keys of success, my theory. And I want to ask you about that theory. This is normally what I do on the show, but I don't think people realize that, you can have an experience in high school that will set you up to be a multimillionaire later. And there is no direct connection to that experience and what you're doing later, unless you think about it like, oh, most popular in high school, I had a lot of friends. This will work. I can do this. I can make a living out of this. It took you a while to figure it out. So I think that's a really, really cool story. And I wonder if there are people listening to the show right now who have similar experiences. They can think back that they were voted the friendliest or the most likely to succeed or whatever. And they've never tapped into the reason why they got voted that. What did people see in you naturally then that you can do now? So that's a really cool story, Josh. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that a lot. So let me do this, man. Let's talk about the keys of success, because on the show, generally speaking, I kind of run through my theory. There's these 5 keys of success, and I made them alliterative. They all start with P, so they're easier to remember. But in my interviews, not only on the show, but just in general, I found that these 5 keys show up every time. So I want to run these past you, and you tell me what you think. So the first one, I believe, is a key that unlocks the door of success for entrepreneurs like you and me, is that of passion. And the word passion doesn't mean what most people think it means. They usually think it means that emotional passion. They're excited about something, they love it. And certainly that is one of the definitions of the word. But the original root word where we get the word passion means willing to endure, which you and I understand as followers of Jesus Christ. We know that his last week on earth, we typically refer to as the Passion of the Christ. There was even a movie, Mel Gibson did the movie in the early 2000s, The Passion of the Christ. And even it always confused me. Why are we calling it that? Because he didn't look happy about it. It didn't seem like he was excited. But when I learned later in life that that word passion means willing to endure, and then it all kind of fell together for me. It made sense. So here's what I want to ask you. We're going to take a break from our show right now to bring you our sponsors. All right. Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now back to the show. I believe that no entrepreneur can be successful unless they have a willingness to endure for the thing that they're building. Do you agree? And how do you see passion playing into your life as an entrepreneur to open up your success?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. So willing to endure. Yeah, that definitely puts a different spin on it than I'm really excited about this crap. No, it's I'm willing to go the distance. So let's talk about success. Let's talk about the flip side of success. I've built millions of dollars worth of stuff. I've also been bankrupt. I've worked and coached billionaires, and I've also had to work on the back of a moving truck. I've been on food stamps. I've had to move back in with mom and dad. I've had to borrow money. I've worked in venture capital, private equity, built some amazing stuff, but along the way, I've also got my butt whooped. Okay. I really had to go through some stuff. Now, I would say willing to endure. I think, as an entrepreneur, let's just say I got lucky. There's some entrepreneurs out there who have the Midas touch, who touch something and it just wins. Step number one, they win and they do really well. Great. What happens if they lose it? Do they have the same energy, the same passion, the same desire, the same calling to go recreate what they did? And if not, then they're a one-hit wonder, or maybe a 10-hit wonder, but they're probably not playing at the level that they could. So I agree. Willingness to endure whatever for a purpose, 100%.
Can you think of a story or two that you could share with me about a time when you had to endure? Obviously, if you were bankrupt, that was a point of endurance. But where did passion play an important part of your story to lead you to where you are today?
Yeah. I think all hard driving entrepreneurs have daddy issues. So, I think, at 10 years old, I grew up, in Fort Lauderdale. My dad was in construction. I remember him crying to me one day. Now, my dad was a tough dude, right? Like Vietnam vet, he took a couple bullets, got gutted in a rice paddy, grew up, he had a six pack till he passed away. Like my dad was a tough dude. And I remember one day he cried to me. Yeah, every morning we would wake up, read the Bible. I just wanted to hang out with my dad, and he cried. And savings and loans in the late '80s, early '90s were tough. Money was tough, all this stuff, and he cried to me. So, seeing that, I always wanted to fix daddy. I always wanted to figure out a way for the family business. How do I make a lot of money to help people like my dad? And that, catapulted me, 30 years later, I'm still trying to help small businesses, service-based businesses, people like my dad to build and grow and scale or sell or buy or whatever. Like it's still a part of who I am, maybe because I had that early pain point growing up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting and touching story. Your dad recently passed away. Is that correct? I think I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah. So
August
I'm
of
really,
2020.
yeah. So I'm really, really sorry. Sorry about that, man. That's my dad's still with me, and I love my dad, and I can't imagine being on earth without him. So I know that that's a pain point for you. So thank you for being transparent and sharing that part of the story. Well, the second key that I talk about in the key to success, you got passion is kind of the first, and I think the most important key. If you're not willing to endure, you're never going to be successful. And then the second key is being at the right place at the right time. And I think a lot of people that I've interviewed as entrepreneurs, formally and informally, kind of can point to a place and time that allowed them to be successful. And it's not luck. And I know you used the word luck earlier, and I don't think you meant it the way that some people might have heard it. But entrepreneurs aren't lucky. It's really about the harder they work, the luckier they get. They put themselves in places and put themselves in situations where they can be successful. But for you specifically, Josh, what can you think of back to a place and time that if you hadn't have been there or hadn't have done that, or if the timing hadn't worked out, it wouldn't have led you to where you are today?
Yeah, man. So going to school, I'm working in college. I'm working with my dad. And I want to make some extra money. I got a phone call from a friend, and they go, "Hey, I need someone to go valet park cars. Do you want to make a couple $100 in a day?" I was like, "Heck yeah!" I'm a terrible driver, but I'd love to go, make some money. So I show up, and at the end of the day, some guys walking out, big belly, old dude, big big mustache, and he actually wore a flat cap like this. And someone else ran off to get his car, and he looked at me, he goes, "Hey kid, why are you smiling so much?" An old guy, you know? And I was just like, "Well, man, I'm making money. I'm going to school. I'm getting an education. I'm having fun, and God loves me. Why would I not smile?" And he goes, "Oh, that's interesting." We started talking. He became an investor. Uh, the guy picked up his Rolls Royce, drove it up. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town for a little bit. Do you want to go have dinner?" I was like, "This is weird, but yeah." So he wound up being an investor, and him and my dad and our family built multifamily across Central Florida. But that came from me syndicating my first deal at 18, 19 years old, not having any clue what I was doing, you know? So right place, right time. But it was my gifting of connecting with people, seeing an opportunity and going, "Oh, you should meet my dad. My dad could build stuff. You've got money? My dad could build it." First deal.
That's
Multi-million dollar
awesome.
deal. Yeah.
That is great, man. I love that story because some cynical people who have an employee's perception rather than an entrepreneurial perception would look at that and go, "Well, he was lucky. You just happened to be there when that guy with the Rolls Royce just happened to ask you the question." No, listen, you took the opportunity to go work that job because you wanted to work the job, and then you had an attitude of acceptance and openness when the guy started conversing with you, and then you took the chance to go have dinner with a stranger. You did it. That's such a cool story. We need to take more chances and put ourselves in places where we can be successful. So passion and place definitely played a part. Now, the third key is all about Josh Wilson. It's people, knowing the right people. And that's that's the theme of your entire story of success, I think, is about people. So I know you've already mentioned your grandmother being influential in your early years, doing some entrepreneurial garbage, what was it? Garage sale arbitrage.
Garage sale arbitrage. Yeah, that's exactly what we were doing.
So and then the guy with the Rolls Royce, is your grandmother still with you today, or she passed?
She passed. Yeah,
She's passed. What about the gentleman with the Rolls Royce? Is he still around?
Oh yeah, 90 years old, still kicking, still smarter than all of us. And yeah, I've known him since 18. He's become a mentor in my life. He's walked me through some challenges. He was one of the first people I called when my dad passed. He's a grandpa to me, right? I consider him family. I pick him, So yeah.
What's his name?
Charlie.
Charlie
Dieters.
All right,
Yeah.
Charlie, if you're listening to the show, I don't
He
know.
doesn't know how to turn his phone on.
Well, Charlie, if you happen to ever listen to the show, just know that you changed not only Josh's life, but the lives of countless hundreds of other people that he's talked to and been in touch with all these years, the last 22 years of his life, because you were open and had a conversation with him. So that's why I believe that knowing the right people is such an important key to success. And if you're an entrepreneur, spending all your time in your basement, working in your office or your bonus room, wherever your office is, and you just there all the time, you're kidding yourself, man. You got to get out there and go do stuff. I'll give you an example. I'm in Florida, like I talked about in the introduction. I'm in Florida this week for an event. I've got a friend of mine that's starting a nonprofit. So we came down here for their gala for the weekend. Plus we're having a big meetup of these hundreds of people that are all together in the same organization. We're meeting up, and it's an inconvenient time for me. I got a lot going on, but I made the decision. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to rub elbows with these people because you never know what's going to happen. So put yourself in those places. So thank you for sharing that story about Charlie. That's Charlie needs to go listen to the show. You need to give him maybe you got anybody that makes records? Maybe we could take this episode and be the first podcast ever put on wax, and we could take it to him.
Nice. Here you go. Play this on your vinyl, right?
He's got a Victrola.
Yeah. Can I share something about that? Right. So there's people, I'm naturally extroverted. I'm naturally charismatic, right? Like, I don't have to really try hard to be those things. Like, there's some days I'm going through a tough time, but like I could change my attitude my attitude, my energy. I could do that pretty easy. But there are people out there who are maybe a little bit more introverted. Maybe they're really nervous about public, engaging. So if you are that person, in the audience, like, yeah, put yourself out there, but maybe connect with a guy like me, right? Because you could probably help my business by like doing numbers and, better operational than I am, probably a lot more organized. But because of people like me, I'll help you expand your network. And maybe that's a deal that we could do. So for people out there who might really be struggling, meeting people or connecting, there's things that I need help with that you could help me with, and maybe I could help you there. So that's syndication too. So leverage other people's strengths and try not to level up your weaknesses too much. Just focus on your strengths. That's
That's a
what I
good.
think.
I think that's a good point too, and it's a good encouragement to the listeners who perceive you, people like you and me, as well. You have a gift that I don't. I'm not ever going to be able to do that. I'm not naturally an extrovert. I think I refer to myself more as an ambivert. I think that's the word where you can kind of, depending on your scenario, you can go either way. But generally, naturally, I would probably kind of take a back seat, not be the guy out in front. But given the opportunity and the need, I will take the front. I'll get up and speak in front of 2 or 3,000 people if I need to. It doesn't matter. But I think what you just said is really good. No matter where you are and what your strengths are, there are other people out there that can complement that, and look at it as links in a chain. I can't be every link in my own chain. Neither can you, Josh, and neither can the other people listening to the show. So we got to link ourselves with other people who have different strengths than us. That's a very good point. I'm going to go to this preparation. The fourth key is preparation. So you got passion, place, people, and then preparation. And I believe in your story, if I'm right about this, is that what prepared you to be successful, and it's as a key to your success was that time in high school when you had so many different various friend groups, and people recognized it, and you might not have known it at the time, but it did prepare you to be who you are today. But that may not be the way you see it, but what prepared you to be successful as an entrepreneur in your mind?
Well, the first time, so let's go back to age 10, right? Dad's crying and I'm trying to figure out how to fix daddy issues. And I started reading books about money and about business and about sales or whatever. And then I would go sell stuff out of dumpsters or sell, candy in school, right? So I had a pain and I was constantly trying to fix that pain for my own family. And in the process of fixing my own pain, people would come to me and go, "Hey, you're pretty good at sales. Could you maybe help me, coach me, teach me, do it for me?" I'm like, "Sure." So I was preparing by trying to just fix a problem. It wasn't like I woke up one day and go, "I'm going to be a billionaire or a millionaire or whatever." I woke up going, "How do I stop this pain? This sucks." So, um, I wish had a better vision growing up. But then, as I get older, I just look at what worked and what didn't work. And I've had a lot of things that didn't work. So I try to just stop doing that and do more stuff that does work.
Yeah, I think the preparation is the know how to pull it off.
Yeah.
And so many people right now that listen to the show that are wanting to take a venture into entrepreneurship just don't know which way to go. And I think they might be looking in the wrong direction. Just look around for what you're prepared. What prepared you? What do you know that is unique to you? I mean, do you know something that other people don't know, or you know it better than other people? That might be the thing that you could launch you or catapult you into success as an entrepreneur. Well, the fifth P, Josh, is plan. It's the plan to actually be successful, because you can't just shoot from the hip and make it work forever. You can do that first. I'm a believer in fake it till you make it, but not in a disingenuous type of way. I'm a believer that you can start that way, but you soon have to say, okay, how am I actually going to pull this off? What's my strategy to deploy financial capital? And that's why syndication is such a good thing for people to look into, is that you can syndicate, bring other people together, and that could be your plan. So what was your plan to become successful with Kingdom Syndicate and the other businesses that you've got going on?
Yeah. I think at first it was, how do I put food on the table for my family? Like, I wasn't, when you have money in the bank, when I was in venture capital, or, when I was firefighter and I had 4 other jobs and you had consistent money coming in, like, it's easy to start planning. Here's where this dollar's going. But being an entrepreneur, sometimes, you'll have a $10,000 month, and then some months you'll have a negative $10,000 month, right? So having a plan, depends on your situation, I think. But in an early stage venture, a lot of it is, we've got to figure it out. We've got to figure it out fast, and how do we make money? So, as you start to make more and then you have a little bit of extra, then, the plan comes together and you start bringing other people in to help with that, once you've proven the process or the product or the service. So I think as more comes in, I plan on I create plans for those things, and maybe I'm doing it backwards, and I probably am. But I've asked you your advice multiple times, and then I've talked with people. So I think depending on what stage I'm at, I start to look 3 steps beyond, and I start asking people, what would you do in this situation? Bring on those advisors and such. So my plan is keep on meeting new people and keep asking questions. I think.
I love it. Well, I think it's a good plan. I think what you just indicated there at those last couple sentences in your comment indicates how important masterminds are. And I know that I'm involved in them. I run one, and it's that being able to get together because your plan may not be the best plan. And if you just run past somebody to go, no, here's a better plan. Here's a better way to deploy capital. Here's a better way to hire people. Here's a better way. That's why I love masterminds in general. And I love the concept. And I love continuing to expand my network through people like you. That's why I love doing the show. I love doing the Root of All Success. I love podcasting because I would never, if I hadn't done the show, you and I had never met. And now that we met, our lives are better, deeper, more enriched. Even though we've never ever spent any moment in the same room together. Like we've never been in the same room together, seen each other physically, but we know that we can call each other, text each other. We can get on Zoom calls. We can do shows like this. We can introduce people. I love that you said, and honestly, my plan was just to feed my family, but that's not enough. You got to change that as you go. So passion, place, people, preparation, and plan played into Josh Wilson's story of success, from alligator wrestling to delivering babies, fighting fires, venture capital, and good old Charlie. I love the Charlie story. That is such a great story. Charlie needs to. Have you ever told Charlie how? I mean, I probably have, and like how important and pivotal he was in your life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I've learned this. Growing up, it was guys don't share their feelings and their emotions, especially Wilson. But I learned pretty quickly after getting my butt whooped a few times and needing help from people that you got to let people know what they mean to you, right? So everyone I know, even investors, right? Like an investor, and I'll be like, or a partner or a client, and I'll give them a hug and I tell them I love them, and they're like, "What?" It freaks some people out, and I don't mind, but like. I am consistently letting people know, like, hey, man, I love you. Like, you're so great. And I'll tell my team, I'll tell people that I engage with, I go, do you know that you are really good at this? And I'll point that out in front of them, their friends or family or whatever. But I am consistently trying to lift people up, man, because this world just, there's a lot of people in this world who will just kick your butt all day long. And people are really good at picking out your bad things. So I want to be known as the guy who just consistently lifts up people. And go, you know what, Jason, you got a really freaking awesome beard. I'll meet you in an elevator, and I'll be like, dude, you got a great beard. Like, what the heck? Give me some advice. Look at this baby beard. I can't grow one. Give me some advice. And then we start talking, and then we do a deal. So, yeah, I've let Charlie know, and I've let you know, and I'll let anybody know how important they are to me.
So in the listenership of the show, we've got people that are on both ends of the spectrum of the entrepreneurial journey. You've got the ones that are on the very beginning, just starting, haven't figured out how to start, haven't started, that very, very beginning baby steps.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Charlies. You got the Charlies that are on the other side they're driving the Rolls Royces, and they've made it to they've met a level of success as an entrepreneur that are killing it. And then everything in between. But I want to give you the opportunity here as we start closing the show out, is I want you to speak to the people on the front end of that spectrum. What is, as a successful entrepreneur yourself, what is your advice to those people at the beginning? What would you say, this is the sage advice you need from people like you who've already, achieved some levels of success? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I've talked a lot of people out of entrepreneurship, to be honest. Right. And then I've talked a lot of people into it, and I've talked a lot of people in terms of a pivot. So being on podcast shows and such, I talk to a lot of people, and people will message me. And a lot of times I'll just phone call them right away. If they send me an email like, hey, what do you think about this business? I'll call them. I'll be like, it's terrible. Don't do it. Right. Because I've done it. But I would say the best advice is talk to people about your idea. Talk to a lot of people. Right? Don't send me an NDA and go, hey, I'm going to start out this with, I don't trust you. Investors don't sign NDAs right off the bat, but take your idea and share it. Nobody's going to steal your baby. And if they can't steal it, that means you're not good enough or the idea is not good enough. Talk to people about your plan, ask them for advice, buy their time. Say, hey, could I buy you a cup of coffee? What's it look like to have you as a consultant? What's it like to be in your mastermind group? How do I capture more of your time, energy, and attention? Right? If someone buys me a cup of coffee, I'll have a coffee with them. But if they want me to like dig in, let's figure out a way to work together. Right? Maybe you could do something for my business. Maybe you could pay me. Maybe you can mow my lawn, and whatever the case may be. Right? So talk to people. You've got to get out of your room while you're building on your own and talk to people. Share your idea a lot.
That's good. That is a really good advice, man. Well, how would people get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to interact with you?
Yeah, so they can, find me on LinkedIn, Joshua Bruce Wilson, named after my father. They can look up thedealscout.com. That's one of our companies under the public relations firm. Here's my cell phone, 352-274-4500. Text me. We've got an impact show for men, uncensored advice for men. They could check that out. So text me, call me, email me, something like that. That's fine.
Well, it's been an honor talking to you, man. I know we've talked before in the past. Of course, I was on your show and we've had other conversations about different things, but it's really been a pleasure hearing a little bit more about your story and what you're doing to make this world a better place. And I know that for all of us as entrepreneurs, at the end of the day, if we're not making money to support our families, we can't do what we're doing. So yeah. we acknowledge that. But beyond the fact that we have to survive and pay the bills, we want to make an impact. And I love what you're doing. I love that your focus is on building kings and kingdoms. As a fellow follower of Christ, I appreciate that. And I know there are a lot of listeners who also agree with that sentiment. So thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been an honor. Thank you so very much. I'll give you the last word. What would you like to say as we close it out?
Yeah, one of the questions you had for me early on, you said, Josh, what is the definition of success? Do you mind if I share my definition of success?
Yeah, I would love for you to, because the conversation was so great. I completely forgot to ask the one question I told you I was going to. So thank you for calling me out on it. So Joshua, let me ask you a question. What is in your own words, what does success mean?
Jason, that's such a great question, man. Thank you for asking me that. I wish someone would ask me that, and you finally did. So the definition of success, in my opinion, is not attached to a comma or a dollar bill, right? That's just a metric, right? It's not even how many people I help. That's also not a measure of success. For me, the truest definition of success is I do what I feel that I'm called to do. And if I could do it and do it to the best of my ability, that there is success. And it might look different from anybody. It might be I could be the best garbage man because I'm called to be a garbage man. I actually like picking up trash, right? Or it could be building or investing in businesses. But when you do that which you're created to do, and it's aligned with who you are, your skill sets, your talents, your desires, your passions, right? When that's aligned, you feel in a flow of life. And when you're in that flow of life and you're doing that which you love to do, and people are actually paying you for it, that's success.
With that as a definition of success, which is a very good one, do you consider yourself to be a successful person?
Yes. If you look at my bank account or some of my past, you might say no. Man, I'm the most successful dude there is. My wife loves me and she's proud of me. My kids love me. My God validates me and says, man, I'm one of his favorites. I get to look in the mirror every day and be proud of the guy that I'm looking at. I screw up a lot. My friends love me. My people love me. I get to serve my people. So I am successful because of that, not because of the other stuff.
Man, well, I'm glad that you called me out on forgetting to ask that question, because that was definitely worth it, and I appreciate you doing that. But I will say again, man, it's such an honor to talk to you and to hear your heart about your story about entrepreneurship and how you've become so successful. And I love the definition of success, and I love what you're doing with it. And I love the fact that you're confident about your success, that there's no wavering. Yes, I'm successful. I appreciate that very much. And I hope that's an encouragement rather to the people that are listening to the show. So Josh, thank you for being here today, man. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. And shout out to Charlie. Hey, when you listen to this, Charlie, make sure you subscribe and like and leave a review for Jason here.
All right, Josh. Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Well, there you have it. Another successful entrepreneur talking about his story of success. And, Josh and I met, as I explained on the show, through LinkedIn, connecting on podcasts. And I was a guest on his, and he's been now on my show. And I really, really hope that you're taking away from this how important people are in your story. You've got to connect with people. You've got to be out there. Now, I know I have some friends that don't do social media, and that's fine. You don't have to do it, but you've got to connect with people somehow. You've got to make sure that you are putting yourself in places and around people that can help you get to that level of success. And if you're not doing that, you're going to find it very difficult to attain success. So make sure that you're paying attention to that, of how important people are. And as Josh explained, that's been the key to everything for him. That platinum Rolodex that he's built over these years has helped him become the successful person that he is today, and the unashamedly successful person that he thinks that he is today. So that's fantastic. I hope this has been helpful. As he said, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. It means a lot. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/TheRealJasonDuncan. You can look up my website, TheRealJasonDuncan.com. But I want to offer you this. One of the ways that you can connect with more people at a very low price point is to join my online community called The Successful Entrepreneur, or TSE, The Successful Entrepreneur. TSE is only $55 a month. You can join, and what you get from TSE is you get access to dozens and dozens and dozens of other very successful entrepreneurs and aspiring successful entrepreneurs. And I do live coaching almost every single week for an hour. So for example, I do a couple of calls every single month called Ask Jason Live, and it's an opens Q&A time for you to log in, just ask questions. If you want access to a coach who's built multi-million-dollar businesses, who's been in Inc. magazine, Entrepreneur magazine, I can offer that for you for only $55 a month, but you get 2 of those a month. Plus you also get 1 success lecture I do live every month, where I come on and talk about a topic of importance to entrepreneurship. I do that live. And those 2 calls are limited only to members of TSE. Plus TSE members get access to the complete library of everything I've ever done on video for the TSE, including one of the TSE versions of videos and trainings that I do every month. I do a couple times a month, called the Entrepreneur Masters series. And the Entrepreneur Master series is a little bit like a podcast, but rather than talking stories and sharing concepts and ideas, the Entrepreneur Master series is when I bring on a guest and I talk specifically with that guest about his or her expertise in a specific topic related to entrepreneurship. And this is where it really gets tactical. So I do those on Tuesdays from 3:30 to 5 p.m. Central Time, and I bring in experts on some topic. Now, those series are open to the public. We invite the public to come, that not just members of TSE, but here's what you get. As a TSE member, you get that library of all the replays. So if you can't make it live, you get the replays of it, where people who are from the public can only come to it when I'm doing it live. So go to therealjasonduncan.com/TSE for the Successful Entrepreneur. Sign up today. It's only $55 a month. It is insane that you couldn't afford to do that. For the investment value that you get, dollar for dollar, it's the best coaching you're going to get. And you get to rub elbows because there's online forums. There's ability to connect with all the other TSE members all around the world. It's going to be just like what Josh talked about in the show, increasing your Rolodex so that you can be more successful. Well, tune in again next week when I talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success and how they unlock success with these 5 keys of passion, place, people, preparation, and plan. Until then, remember, I'm the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we invite you to visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Take charge of your business. Grow it from great to incredible. Join us again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.